Hey, it's Michelle with the Medicine Couch, and I have another thing to update about the PANRE-LA. I know I recently made an update video talking about what has happened with the test and where all these crazy new questions have come from. I'll put a card here to link to that video, but I'll also have the link to it at the very end. Anyway, since that video, these removed and replaced items have now shown up on our dashboard. And I knew they were coming. I mentioned it in the last video, but I didn't really think about all of the questions that they would generate when they did show up. And I understand the confusion. I wasn't quite sure myself what they were exactly and how they affect the scoring. So I reached out to NCCPA and I've been emailing back and forth with them, getting the information to share with you. I think it all makes sense, and I'm going to tell you how it works and how it affects the scoring, which is what most people really want to know. But also understanding these removed and replaced items helps me understand why we rate each question as to our confidence level when we answer it and the relevance that it has to our practice. So I'm also going to explain that in this video to help you understand how it all fits together. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about resources, because I've been thinking about how these replaced items maybe affect how we should study moving forward and how these complex intervention questions really kind of affect the resources we choose to use. Okay, before I get started, I just want to say if you like my videos and you find them helpful, please hit that thumbs up button and share them with colleagues who may be struggling with this test and would benefit from knowing this information. So let's start by talking about what the replaced items are. And if you don't know what I'm talking about at all when I say replaced and removed items, then you may not have looked at your NCCPA exam dashboard lately and reviewed your previous quarters. When you do that and you go to that tab that shows you the questions you got wrong and right each quarter, you'll now see some grayed out questions that will either say replaced or removed. So that's what we're talking about. We're going to start with the replaced items. So NCCPA has told us all along that there are going to be 5 topics from each quarter that we are going to get retested on at some point during the test. So when you see a question that's grayed out and it says replaced, that means that you have been retested on that item. Now, this is all done automatically by, a computer program that is written to go through your statistics and to see what topics you missed and retest you on those. Now, if you don't get enough questions wrong each quarter, they will pull from questions that you got right and retest you on some of those topics. So if you go through a quarter and say you only got one question wrong the whole quarter, they'll retest you on the topic that question covered, but there's 4 more topics that they have to retest you on. So how does the computer decide which topics they're going to retest? Well, that's where the confidence and the relevance score come into play. The computer will look at things that you marked low confidence and also take into account things that you marked were very relevant for your practice. So any questions they come across that are low confidence but high relevance to your practice, then that's probably a topic that they're going to retest you on. Now you may ask, why make this so complicated? Why are they doing this? Why do we have to have replaced items? Well, there's actually 2 reasons that they do it. First of all, the design of the test is to help us improve our learning. So if you get a topic wrong, they're going to want to retest you on it to make sure that you see it again and that you've had a chance to learn it and hopefully get it right, improving your score. So it is a tool to help us increase learning and to help increase our score. Now let's talk about the scoring. How do these replaced items affect your score? It's not really hard, but it's difficult to explain, so I'm just going to use a couple scenarios. First of all, we're going to do the scenario where you got the question wrong previously, and then they retest you on the topic, a little bit different question, but the topic is being retested, and you get it right this time. How does that affect your score? Well, the question that was wrong before is just going to be thrown away. So that automatically will bring up your score a little bit there. And then you get credit for having the question right in this quarter. So overall, definitely a net positive increase in your score. Now, what happens if you got the question right on the topic previously, you're retested again, and you got it right again? Well, the previous question will be replaced, and you've got the correct answer now. So that correct answer will affect your score just as any correct answer in a quarter is going to do. Now, what about the final scenario where you had the question right, you were retested on the topic, but unfortunately this time you got it incorrect. And remember, you were retested most likely because you said you had low confidence in it to begin with. So that is possible that you're going to get it wrong when you get retested again. Well, the first question is going to drop off your test and it won't affect the underlying score in any way. But unfortunately, getting it wrong in the current quarter will obviously bring down your score a little bit for that quarter. So basically, it's just like that first question never existed. It didn't harm you in any way. But when you got the chance to be retested on it and you missed it, it did harm you for this quarter, as any wrong answer would. And now the big bombshell, or the thing that most people don't realize, is that this has been happening every quarter since the test began. Nothing has changed with how they're doing the scoring. We just didn't know this was happening. It was all happening behind the scenes. They decided to show us which questions have been replaced or removed for transparency, because a lot of people have contacted them saying that they want to know what is happening. They want to see that. So that's why they are now letting us see that on the dashboard. It wasn't like that all of a sudden they decided to go through and replace and remove questions and they did it all at one time and dumped it into our score and it changed our score. That's not how it happened. At the end of every quarter, the score that you get already incorporates the removed or the replaced items. So the replaced items, assuming you did better on some, have been helping your score all along. And this past quarter, when you answered your questions, the score that you saw at the end of the quarter is just a reflection of how you did in the sixth quarter. Additionally, you have to know that these replaced and removed questions cannot negatively affect your score in any way, other than if you miss it in the current quarter. It is designed so that these replaced and removed questions can only improve your score. And one final caveat about the replaced items and being retested over topics. I was told that if you are retested on a topic, that you will not be tested again on that topic for the rest of the quarters moving forward, unless there's some significant change in like guidelines or something about that topic gets updated. Now let's talk about what the removed items are. These are basically questions that have been deemed bad, that for some reason there's some problem with the question and it has just been thrown out altogether. So if you had got the question wrong and then they removed it, then it helped your score overall. But if you got it right and they removed it, then it didn't change your score at all. Now, what's a little bit different about the removed than the replace items is that they only go through and remove questions at the first quarter of every year. So that explains why it takes so much longer to get our grades in the first quarter of every year. Whereas in the other quarters, your score updates automatically as soon as you finish those 25 questions. So when the first quarter ends and they're taking that extra time, they're reviewing all the questions throughout the year to try to identify any bad questions. And the way that they do that is they take your feedback, if you've emailed them at examdevelopment@nccpa.net with complaints about a question and your arguments about why you think it's a bad question, they take that and then they also go through and examine any outliers that the computer shows them, any questions where a significant number of people got that question wrong, like way below the average of what they would expect people to get wrong or right on that question. So any of those outliers, any of those questions that statistically are poor performers, they will look at those and then they will kind of combine the two and then they will figure out which questions they do feel are in fact bad questions and should be removed. Now, you may not see any removed on your dashboard because not all of us get the same questions. So like I've only had one question in all 6 quarters that's marked removed, where some of you may have a couple that have been removed. So don't be alarmed if you don't see any or if you only see like one. And remember, just like the replaced, the removed questions cannot harm your score. It can only help improve it. Now I want to talk a little bit about resources because I said as I have thought more about these complex intervention questions, it made me kind of think about resources. I still think that the resources that have that searchable blueprint are the best resources, and pretty much that's Smarty Pants and Hippo. And I prefer Smarty Pants for a couple of reasons. One, it is a PA owned and run company. I think that their information is great. They have a lot of other stuff that you get with the membership besides the searchable blueprint. And then also, it's very affordable. And if you use my discount code, you can get an additional 10% off that already reasonable price. But having said that, you're likely not going to find the answers that you need to answer these complex intervention questions on those resources. Because a lot of times these complex intervention questions are really making us take our knowledge and kind of think through like what the next step or the next intervention would be. And that's often driven by the scenario. So it's going to be hard just to kind of find the answer on these blueprints. Of course, you can use the information for each topic to inform your decision and kind of think through your decision, but they're not going to be the greatest for leading you to the answer, which I think is why I'm seeing a lot of people saying, they're using these resources, but they haven't helped the last couple of quarters. They do help on majority of the other questions that are not the complex intervention ones, but I think we in our mind are focused on these really kind of difficult and sometimes vaguely written questions or questions that we think have multiple right answers. Can't really help you much with that. NCCPA, when I talked to them at AAPA, just basically said to try to put your generalist hat on when you are thinking through these answers. But anyway, if those resources aren't helpful, what would be the best resources? And I kind of feel like for those of you who may be on the fence about whether you want to take a PANRE/PANRE-LA review course, then maybe it might tip you towards taking those courses. I highly recommend CME for Life. Again, another PA owned and run company. I love their courses. I think they are very well done and they really give you a lot of great information and a lot of ways to remember the information. But especially CME for Life, I know when John Belinsky, the owner of the company, when he made these courses and decided what information to put in them, he made sure that when he covers a topic, it covers all of the different interventions you need to know, all the way up to the complex interventions. So you're probably going to get more reasoning in those type of courses. You're going to be able to talk through and ask questions about that. And so you really kind of understand the next steps. It's really up to people whether they think they need a whole review course if they're taking the PANRE-LA or not. But if you're one of those people that are kind of on the fence about it and think it might be helpful to you, then this may push you over the fence to decide that, yeah, that may be a course that's right for you. And just like with Smarty Pants, I'm also excited to be able to offer you a discount. And of course, I'll have that discount code and the link to their website in the description box down below. So what are the takeaways from all this? Basically know that nothing has changed, even though we're now seeing these things on the dashboard. It has been incorporated in the test all along. Any item that has been replaced or removed can only help increase your score. It will never turn your score back or impact it negatively. And finally, if you are anxious about your score or feel like you're doing poorly and want to maximize your studying each quarter, then I would highly suggest not only studying your wrong answers, but also studying topics that you marked as low confidence and or highly relevant to your practice. And again, if you want to learn how you search your dashboard for those so you can easily identify which ones you need to study, then watch this video here. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.